I'm live, and I'm only 1 minute late. I'm sorry. We got in, had the boys out swimming, and it was lovely. It was lovely, and I got in, and Ariel was making some really good, real tacos, and I stopped for a moment to eat one or two. I had two, but I'm here, and I'll see if anybody else shows up here. I'll see what happens tonight because I have a topic, and I know what I want to talk about. So that's going to be good. I need to know if anybody's here. Drink of the night. It's not as good as Voltage. It's not, but it'll do. It's blue. Hey there, sir. How are you today? Can you hear me? I guess since you're the first one here commenting, I'll use you. It says there's 5, but you guys hear me okay? It's not as good as Voltage, but it'll do. So I thought an interesting topic to talk about tonight, extending from what we were talking about last week, and because I tested a new knife out today, was going to be specifically about knife grinds. Yes, you can. Awesome. It's going to be knife grinds. Because last week we started talking about fixed blades. We started talking about features, and I kind of went, as I always do, I went off the rails. I'm wearing the newest, I unboxed it just now, TVP Elite Membership shirt, by the way. And you'll see what's on the back when that video comes out. But just to recap, I sort of made my views known that when designing a knife, we really... Hey, Christopher, what's going on? Me, as a guy who designs knives, who has made knives, me, as someone who uses knives, when I'm selecting a knife, I start with the handle and the feel, and I work out from there. Why is this blurry? You guys seeing blurry? I'm going to check the settings. Oh, should be good. Okay. And then we go to blade. Okay. We talked about different materials. We didn't get into it too much, but we talked about materials. And we talked about some blade shapes a little bit. Tonight, I really want to talk about the blade grind. The blade grind is not so much the blade shape. That's a little bit different. Kevin, what's up? The blade shape can be drop point. The blade shape can be a tanto. The blade shape can be a trailing point or a bow or something. Now, sometimes the blade shape that you're going for does influence the grind that you use. They go together. But the blade grind is really how you bring this steel from... Christopher, I have design, here's the thing. People are always asking, when are you going to do a knife? I'm like, so I have made knives for individual customers, like complete knives, and I never have shown them or videoed them or anything because that's very personal to, the person, like the thing. So I have knife designs. I'm possibly going to introduce an actual design to production. That's all I want to say about it right now. I don't want to... That's it. But I'm just giving my process a little bit. So when we talk about the blade grind, we're talking about how we get from the spine and the thickness of... Oh my gosh! We've got exploring it all. How is it this is a big thing because time distance on the West Coast and having to deal all alone with a daughter is a big thing. I appreciate you're here. So I'll start that again. When we talk about blade shape is one thing, but blade grind is how we get from our full thickness blade stock here to our sharp cutting end here, and how we make the shape, not of the blade silhouette, but the shape of the knife in relation to blade thickness to cutting surface in the bottom. So you might hear words described as full flat ground, saber ground, flat saber ground, hollow ground, Scandi grind, and chisel grind. These are all different. I should have had a graphic ready. I'm a terrible person. These are all different grinds for getting to the cutting edge. That's so funny you say you stayed home from the pool today, because I was just saying I took the boys out to swim. Our HOA pool was closed for about a week for machinery and chlorination purposes. Hello, Mr. Bott. How are you doing over in the mighty King's country over there across the pond? So I thought that a good topic to discuss tonight would be, we talked about all the other features of knives. Let's talk about the actual blade grinds and how they either can contribute or kind of suffer the performance of an outdoors knife. Hey, Craig, what is up? And understand that I'm going to give you a little bit of factual information, but a lot of this is going to be us sharing opinions, discussing what we like and what works for us. And factually, I'm just going to be kind of describing blade grinds, and that's it, and kind of how history has shown they work a little bit. Kate Poison, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while, but then again, I haven't been doing live streams in a while, so that's kind of my fault. So I think kind of one of the easiest grinds to do is a full flat ground. Oh, officer, I have not seen you in a while. How are you? I'm feeling better these days, a little better as we go. Thanks for asking. How are you? So full flat ground grind basically means that it's flat. There is no change in the angle whatsoever, and I'm using this Ontario Bushcraft field knife. Number one, because Ontario is going away. But number two, it's a good example. No, Craig, nothing was damaged in the Pinto pack. Nothing. The sun has declared the California state as an enemy. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Tell me about it. That time, and it doesn't slow down, buddy. It does not slow down. It's just going to keep going. You're going to beg her to slow down, but she's not going to. So you can see here, because the camera's not going to focus very well, just a flat surface. Now, that doesn't mean it's not angled from point A to point B, but these surfaces are flat, okay? As opposed to something like the good old Ontario 499, where we have a flat and then an angled grind on it. This would be what we call, there's saber grinds, there's flat saber grinds. The differences in some of these, hey Kurt, the differences in some of these grinds can be small and hard to figure out sometimes. And even supposed knife experts will argue over one grind or the other, like what are they? Yeah, Mr. Black, like a butter knife would be a perfect example. A butter knife would be a flat grind. Kurt, you have not missed much. We're talking about different grinds. Jason, hey, what is up? I just filmed Gear Pack, Jason, and it's gonna be entertaining. Kurt, we're just talking about not so much blade silhouette and profile, but blade grinds tonight and how that affects the use of different knives outdoors kind of stuff. But a butter knife would be a perfect example of a flat ground knife. And I don't have knives to demonstrate every possible grind. There are a few different ones, but there are some common ones we see in outdoors knives. What I don't have here is a hollow grind, because you don't see them very much in a big outdoors knife. So a hollow grind, look at my fingers, the way they do this, kind of curving. Now flip that upside down towards the bevel of the knife. That's a hollow grind, and I think we've all seen that, where it curves, sometimes very steep and sometimes very shallow. So we're going to get to Scandi in a minute. We're not at Scandi yet, Craig, but we're going to go there. Now, hollow grind is a very good, very fine slicing kind of EDC grind for a knife. But when we're talking about something that we might be chopping a little with, or something that we're going to be doing some heavy duty cutting with, it leaves us with a real thin piece of steel towards the cutting edge over here, right? And it's a very weak piece of steel. When you have a small blade, there's not a lot of stress put on any one point. But when you think about the physics, as you take that thin blade and you stretch it out, physics-wise, the stress put on any one little part of it gets bigger. and a hollow grind is just not very good for a larger field knife. You end up likely to chip that blade. So while I personally really like a hollow grind, and you hear me talk about it in videos all the time, I like a hollow grind on a smaller folding knife. Hollow grind is not very good at all for a larger knife. And you're taking off a lot of steel when you do a hollow grind. And often in our larger field knives, we want it to have some weight, because if we're going to do some chopping tasks with it, or we're going to use it for batoning or anything like that, we want that knife to have a little bit of mass, right? So taking off all that extra steel in the hollow grind is not a great idea. Convex edge that Kurt just talked about is kind of like the exact opposite of a hollow grind. I don't have a convex blade to show you right now. But so if this is the hollow grind, the convex is like, it's like rounded, and it's easy to see an angled grind, but a convex grind is very hard to do manually and get it even. I should say it's hard for me. It's very easy for some people, but it's basically just rounding that piece of blade stock on the belt as it goes. And there's two ways to get, there's just like Scandi, there's Scandi and then a modified Scandi, there's convex and a modified convex. Normally with a convex, you end up with where both of those rounded sides come to the bevel. And since we're talking about that, I'll talk about Scandi at the same time too. With a Scandi grind, which is what we're looking at, and well, this is again, this is a modified Scandi. This represents the blade profile of a Scandi blade very well, where you have your flat cut across, and then it is normally just ground down. In a true Scandi grind, this comes straight to the edge. There's no bevel on it. And you can see this one does have a bevel. So this would be what we call a modified Scandi grind, which technically doesn't exist. It was something put onto knives later, and we'll talk about why. But the convex grind is the same way. It has no secondary bevel there. It just goes from steel straight into cutting edge. I hope I'm not boring people right now with the technical talk, but we need to understand the different grinds before we talk about why they're good, why they're bad, or what we use them for. So even though this is a modified Scandi grind, this Mora, and if I had just bought a regular Mora, you would have seen the exact same lines as such with the flat and the grind. Your attitude really isn't, it's not about snobbery. It's about how the knife is built, and it's about what the different cutting surfaces are good for. So a sharp knife is not a sharp knife. There are so you wouldn't use, just because this one knife was sharp, would you shave with it, or would you use it to give a haircut, or would you use an intentional hollow ground straight razor for that? I mean, knives are made for a purpose. I don't know what you consider snobbery about knowing the parts of a knife and knowing what grind is good for what tasks. I mean, so it's the same thing. So would you take a hollow grind straight razor out into the woods and try to chop wood with it, or make a feather stick? You know what I mean? It's like somehow having knowledge has been turned into being a snob, and being an actual I don't want to say a smith, but like an artisan who creates these things. You have to know this. Like I said last week, the same thing. I could take this tin can and I could crush it up and I could sharpen the edge of it, and it's sharp, but it doesn't make it a good knife. It's just a sharp piece of metal. That's like a whole different thing. So we have these basic grinds on knives, and some of them are very good for some tasks, and some of them are not so good for other tasks. For example, you would not want to take a chisel ground knife to cut a loaf of bread. Could you do it? You sure could. Chisel grind, by the way, is where it's angled on one side and completely flat on the other, and all you have to do is think of the head of a chisel. And most traditional Tonto knives are chisel ground on one side. They don't hold as fine an edge, say, as some other knives. So if you want to, let's say you're working with food prep, you're not going to get as fine an edge. If you're trying to do fine work, it's just not going to happen. That knife cuts through brute force. Do you think a specific edge holds its sharpness longer? I do. So edges with more steel on them will hold that edge longer. However, we have snob is a common word in the USA. We have snobs. We have lots of snobs. And mostly in upper class communities, we call people snobs. But and we have knife snobs in America. We have people that will not carry a knife if it's not made in the USA and it's not made of the most expensive steel and the most expensive handle material. That attitude, without knowing about steels and knowing about handle materials, I agree, makes you a knife snob, because there are plenty of more affordable, lower priced knives that are just as good. But wanting the best material you can have, I don't think makes you a knife snob. I think there's a fine line between knowing what you're talking about and just wanting the most expensive because it's the most expensive. That's different. But I want to take 10 steps. This is awesome. Congratulations. That is really great. I have been in physical therapy. I know Kurt has. That's a big deal. That is very good. So some of these, and this is where, and let me tell you, this is why why I came up with this topic. So this is a knife from Holtzman Gorilla Survival. He's got a cool gorilla on the blade. And I just did a video testing this out today. And the first thing I looked at was, I said, oh, cool Scandi grind. Because we would look at this and say, oh, cool Scandi grind. And I wanted to look up some more facts about Scandi grinds just so I could speak intelligently about it, details. And then I realized this is not a true Scandi grind. Well, thanks for stopping by, officer. I appreciate it. And try to stay a little cooler. I imagine it's much worse there than it is here in Pennsylvania. Then I realized that Moras are a true Scandi grind. Like I said, a Scandi grind takes that metal straight down to the edge without a secondary bevel, whereas this one has the secondary bevel, and you can see that reflecting on the bottom. So I was thinking, so what's the difference? Well, there is a big difference. Number one, I want you to look at how big this grind is. If it was a true, yes, you are absolutely correct. The Scandi grind comes from Scandinavia, and it is a traditional way of knife making that they've had for however many years they've been making their traditional knives. And it's popular outside of the Scandinavian area because of companies like Mora. Mora, I won't say they showed it to the world, but it's the most popular kind of Scandinavian knife company. And other companies have emulated that grind. However, a lot of them don't do it correctly. They give you the bevel over here. Because on a true Scandi grind knife, where the metal comes straight down to the edge, if I was going to sharpen this thing, I'd have to drag this entire grind across my sharpening stone every single time. And I would lose so much steel when I was sharpening this knife. If you have to follow this entire angle every time you sharpen it. So the life of your knife with a true Scandi grind is shorter than almost any other knife. If that is your go-to outdoor blade, and a lot of people like it for reasons I'll tell you in a minute, I'll get to, that's great. You have a very stable edge, like Christian from Exploring It All was asking, on a convex and a Scandi grind knife, because it's the cutting edge is integral to the rest of the grind of the knife. So there's literally just more steel behind that cutting edge. So it's more stable, less prone to chipping, and maintains that edge longer because it has a Scandi kick. Yeah, I don't know about the Scandi kick at all. I don't know about that. So it has more of that steel backing up in the same grain structure, in the same, all connected, than this with the secondary grind. However, with the secondary bevel on there, you can sharpen just that angle and just that bevel. So you theoretically could make it a finer, you can change the angle to suit your purposes. You can make it a finer angle if you want. You can make it a more obtuse angle, but you're losing much less steel when you're sharpening that knife. My favorite Jason of all time is always going to be the Ontario 499, probably more for sentimental purposes than anything else. But I have had this in the field. I have had this with me in training. I'm just so comfortable. It's comfortable in my hand, and I love it. I can guarantee it's not the best. It's not the best grind and not the best blade shape, but I just love it because I've had, this is my fourth, what is this? This is number 4. I had it lasered in once upon a time. I think this is number 4 that I've been issued. And so I just really like it. This Holtzman, by the way, this could be right on up there. I mean, I was really impressed with how good this felt in my hand. In terms of lower cost knives, I've loved this. Why do I always forget the name? And then Craig always reminds me of the name, not the Garberg. Craig's going to remind me. I don't know. But this guy's always been good too. And and so anyway, yeah, I am shocked that Ontario is closing. I heard from a guy that they were sold to an overseas company, but I don't know. So good things and bad things. So your Scandi grind, because cans ball. There we go. The cans ball. Thanks, Craig. See, I knew I could count on Craig. He sets me straight. So the Scandi grind is very good for doing things like wood processing, because the way that the edge comes straight down is very low friction. It's a predictable angle. You know exactly what angle you have the knife into. There's a chance that, when you get an edge like this, like cutting edge like this, you have no idea what the actual angle is. That's why some people are like, why are you sharpening a knife right out of the box? Sometimes it has nothing to do with the cutting edge. Sometimes a lot of people want to set a specific angle on their bevel. They want to know exactly what that angle is. Sometimes it's for no reason whatsoever. But a lot of times it is for their purposes, taking care of that knife and using it, they want to know exactly what that angle is right on there. All right, Mr. Black, thank you. Congratulations on the good work at PT. Have something delicious. So your Scandi grind knives are very good at processing wood. Very good at processing wood. They're, almost perfect for that. And think about it. They were developed with bushcrafting in mind. That's what they exist for. So they offer you pretty good control of the tip. You'll rarely see a Scandi grind that has any jimping along there. They're not for you to put pressure on. They're for you to have they're lighter weight. They're generally thinner blade stock, and they're made for you to have control of that tip and for you to process through your wood and do tasks like that. For food prep purposes, there might be some better ones out there. Full flat grind is probably better for food prep because a full flat grind knife is lower. It is absolutely low friction. Not as good as a hollow grind in terms of your low friction, but we're getting back into a scenario where you're going to be possibly cutting things on a hardened wood surface. Blade stability is a big thing. And the full flat grind is the absolute, hot and cranky. You notice the hot and cranky? I can make that say whatever I want. I need to learn how to use OBS because it lets me do more, but at least I can do that. So your full flat ground, like it camp kitchen knife kind of thing. Great for that. Not as good for your wood processing because the Scandi gives you more of a wedge kind of shape. So if you need to split small pieces of wood, wait, I want to get this one. My dad used to take me when we go camping to a lake, and he would show me, he'd pick out the exact kind of rocks. He'd say, you can use this one, but not this one. He'd show me the ones that had higher quartz content, to work on. I remember my dad so specifically telling me, recommend watching Harris Heller. Oh, Harris Heller to learn OBS. Thanks. I will check that out. But my dad showing me rocks that were good for start. I remember that. And I still do sometimes. If I'm around, I look for nice smooth rocks I can use that were good. No, Ariel's not even here. I'm just hot and cranky. Where are we going with that? Yeah. Now, convex edges, if you look at most high quality hatchets and axes, you'll find a lot of them have convex edges on them. A lot of them have convex edges on them because that is an excellent low friction. I'm going to use the word low friction a lot. Low friction way to split wood. I'm half right. I should just say raised temperature and cranky, I guess. So the convex edge, like in a wedge scenario, is great because a traditional wedge, if you were going to split wood, it comes directly into contact with that wood, right? And this is all physics stuff. So if you have your wood structure and this convex edge is splitting it, it is riding right next to those wood particles as it drives them apart. Hey, Todd, what's going on? Yes, Ariel is Giggles. That is her real name. I have outed her. Ariel is Giggles. But when you have the convex edge, which is more rounded, it drives in, pushes the wood further out without remaining in direct contact because it's not flat like the inside of your wood surface. That convex edge, I'm sorry, I should have thought ahead to have graphics of these, is a much lower friction surface to do your wood splitting. Peyton, how are you? The topic tonight, different blade grinds, not shapes, but blade grinds for different outdoor activities. So this is why I'm talking about, if you have one knife you love, use it. But there are different grinds to your blade that help you do different activities better or worse. And that's why it's good to be familiar with what different blade grinds are. And not just blade shapes and profiles, but different blade grinds. Using a full flat ground knife to split wood is actually going to be harder for you in the long run. Because what happens is there's not much spread of the wood. You want to use that physics force. And anybody that's ever split a log knows that you get at a certain point splitting the log and the force of the log, like you get it to a certain point where the log starts almost splitting itself because the tension of the fibers in the wood that have already been split start pulling it apart, right? You use a full flat ground knife and you're barely, what you're doing is just using brute force to cut through that piece of wood. And at a certain point, because there's no real split, no force pushing those wood fibers apart, they're going to end up just like surrounding your knife, which ends up basically, it makes it as you get to about the halfway point. Kurt, if she saw you with the part of your world, she'd go to Utah just to smack you for the Little Mermaid reference. The fun part is she has reddish blonde hair and she has freckles. So it's like, dude, I have to bite my tongue from Little Mermaid references all the time. But anyway, if you're using the knife like this, you're actually you're pinching it in between. So another point why knowing your blade grind is important. You're making less work for yourself. Now, this might be for camping. You're like, okay, it's fun, but don't think just can't think about you're actually surviving, where every calorie you burn is taking you closer and closer to starving to death, right? Where you need to do as little work as possible. Knowing this stuff could really save your life. So why do I love the Ontario 499 so much? It's because you don't always have an axe. Like, that's the whole point. Like, if you're you should use an axe or a hatchet to split wood, but you don't always have one. That's like it's the burning question. Like, that's why these outdoor survival type knives are made to do these jobs that they could do. That's why I have a whole video about you could baton wood with a folder, but you shouldn't ever do it. But what if you're in the situation? What if you're in a car accident? What if you're lost in the woods? And there are situations where, like I have been in the military, where every ounce of weight you have to pack in matters. And if it's a job you physically can do with your knife, then that means you lose those 2 pounds or those 3 pounds for the axe. And so we don't carry it. In a lot of those situations, we're also not going to be cutting wood to make a fire either, though. So I'm just throwing the idea out there. It's why would this is a question that is asked all the time, and it's a valid and relevant question to ask in like 95% of the cases. Because if you're just loading up your Jeep or something or whatever to go camping by the lake for the weekend, why not just take an axe and do it right? Some guys want to be manly and do it with a knife because they can. But if you have the opportunity to use the right tool for the right job, why not? Why not do it? I don't know. The convex edge, again, using it, flipping the script, is absolutely not the best kind of knife to use to do feather sticking because of the rotation of the grind. It's far more efficient, a little safer, and just gives you better cuts to use something you can put flat against a piece of wood to make your cuts for feather sticking. A convex grind, while very good for cutting a number of other things, is going to be, it's just, and I wish I had a thing to show you. It's a little more difficult and can actually be dangerous if that knife starts to skip off the wood because it's not made to be flat against a surface for shearing. I mean, and that's really what we're doing. That's the act of we're not so much slicing when we're making a feather stick. We are shearing down the surface of it. I want you to see this. Hold on, I want to read this comment. With knives, natural handling materials are more brittle. True. Bone and antler do not stand up to batoning. True. I agree with 100% of all of that, and that's why my cart. But you know what? I will go with you on that, and I will also say that there's a lot of man-made materials that are terrible. I have broken acrylic scales, and acrylic is just, remember, it's light plastic. I've broken acrylic scales on knives just trying to put them together because I'm very heavy-handed. So, like when I do make a knife, if somebody wants something like Kironite, which is an acrylic scale material, I will actually use a torque screwdriver, like a little torque wrench screwdriver, to make sure I don't overdo tightening them in because I've broken them. That's a great question, and I would give you my answer, but I'm sure that there, like, if you line 10 of us up, you get 10 different answers. I think that the best general purpose grind would be a flat saber grind, general purpose grind, if that's what you're gonna. And that would be my opinion only, though. I couldn't. There's much smarter people than me in the world that would give you different answers and why. I love the Scandi grind. But I'm more of a modified Scandi fan than a full Scandi fan because of that extra bevel. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to have that separate bevel there, instead of using the true properties of the Scandi, why even have it? I mean, so I bounce back and forth. So I really like a flat saber grind because you get great stability in the spine of the blade. You get a fine edge on the cutting surface, and you do get a little wedge-like power for doing some other things. If I had to pick one, if I just had to pick one, it just, and again, it might go back to using the 499 so much, but I think really that is a question that's best answered individually as people go through and use different things. I don't know. I can tell you I don't like chisel ground knives at all because I don't find them to be very precise. However, I say that, and so I saw a video, and I can't remember who it was, but he was showing how to use a chisel ground knife to do shelter building out in the wilderness somewhere. And so what he did was he used can't remember what it was. It was a Tonto knife of some kind, about yay big, so maybe 3-4 inches, right? But completely flat on the backside, Tonto on the one side. And what he would do is he would use that, and he would put it against the wood and just bop it with a baton. Like he had like a purpose-made baton, like a wood mallet, like not shaped like a Looked like an old, what do they call it? Potato masher grenade from World War II. And Craig, I'll get to that in a minute. And your question about degrees. And so he would put that chiseled round blade against a piece of wood and just give it a bop. And then he'd lay it angled and give it a bop. And it would cut out perfect notches. And he would be able to, do that on the various pieces of wood that he wanted to lay together. And they would fit in those notches perfectly. And then he just lashed them together with 5/50 cord or whatever he was using. And that was the only time where I said, wow, that chiseled round edge would be really handy. You could do that with anything, but it would require significantly more bops, maybe 3 to 4 bops for the one good bop where you have that perfect, notch cut out automatically because of the shape of the knife. I don't know. So basic angles go anywhere from 17 to 20 degrees for something like a razor blade or an X-Acto knife. I have seen people try to do a knife in like a 20-degree angle. It's just too thin an edge. You will chip your edge. Something that is going to take any more use, any more pressure than like a razor blade or an X-Acto knife or a very small pocket knife. 20 degrees, think of what 20 degrees is and how that meets up. It is a very fine edge. It makes a very sharp edge, but you're leaving yourself very, very little steel to cut. Traditional, very sharp, razor edge on a pocket knife or just about anything else is about 22 to 25 degrees. I would never take a knife like this. This knife getting to 22 degrees would be included. We're talking about per side. It is 22 degrees, flip it over 22 degrees. Now some people will go even smaller and do a full 23, so you have to figure that. I'm talking about like if I use a guided angle sharpener, which I guess would it depends, because again, if you're doing a chisel grind, I don't know. But even that, a 25-degree angle is still on a knife you're going to be banging on. Razor blade is generally somewhere between 17 and 20 degrees. Generally, some companies will do it thinner than that. If you get a professional straight razor, that's going to be at about 10 degrees. But just a standard razor that you shave your face with, or an X-Acto blade, that's about 17 degrees. Swiss Army knife, because I want you to remember this though too. Think of the actual width of an actual Swiss Army knife blade. I don't have one right here in front of me, I don't think. And I don't want to go crawling around looking. No, I don't. You're also talking about a very thin piece of steel to begin with. And they generally are not very long blades. So it's a little bit different than, say, taking a blade this length and trying to put a 17-degree edge all along it. Yes, old style razors are hollow grind. That's what I was talking about before, like when I mentioned an old hollow ground actual straight razor, those are hollow ground to about 10 degrees. Those are the ones that will cut you by looking at you. They're the ones that gave Al Capone his Scarface name. Professional barber tools, straight razors. Those are awesome. Those are the ones where, they get honed between every use to maintain that perfect angle. Somewhere between 25 and 30 degrees is what most outdoors knives live at. And again, the actual degree, we're talking, and this is above me. This is way above. This is way above my head. But most production, because let's face it, an actual smith can control the quality of their steel a lot better. Most regular production knives are somewhere between 25 and 30 degrees. And where on the degree scale your knife lives best has to do with the type of steel you're using, how thick the steel is, what kind of grind, like we're talking about, what kind of grind brings from the spine down to the bevel. There's a whole bunch of different factors that can consider that. The smaller your angle, obviously, the finer the edge. But remember the trade-off. The more fragile the edge it is, the quicker it is going to be to lose that edge and need resharpening. The thicker, the wider, I don't know why I said thicker, the wider the angle, the more stable that edge is, the longer it maintains, but it's not as fine. It will never be as sharp. A 25-degree edge will never be as sharp as a 17-degree edge because you can't get it as fine. So you have to figure out what you're working with and what you want to do. There are some people, and I have seen them, and they're amazing. Like they speak to the metal, and they can just take a whetstone in their hand, and you're like, I want this at 13.5 degrees, and they will do it, and you measure it, and it's 13.5 degrees. Me, if I want to get degree specific, I can get close on a whetstone. I can put an even edge and get close to what I'm looking for on a whetstone. But if I want specific degree, I need a guided angle system. I need something that's going to lock my blade in and is going to, do that. Whether it's a Lansky or a Work Sharp, or I have the TS Prof now to test out and check, or Wicked Edge, whatever. I need that guidance to get that angle perfect. Sometimes I've seen this happen. I can't explain it. I saw it in a video. I got to find the video. There is a preference for right-handed sharpeners to give a shallower angle on the right side of the blade and a wider angle on the left side, and the opposite for left-handed sharpeners. It's just like a mental thing. I don't know what it is. You have to consciously work against that. Your grind has a lot to do with that. Now that I know by the way, going back to the grind, I've ruined a lot of my Moras because I didn't understand at first that the Scandi grind meant you have to hold that whole angle against the stone and grind that whole angle. I have put micro bevels on a bunch of my Moras, thinking I was resharpening them and wondering why they're never as sharp as Mora brought. And I've used Lanskys on them and stuff. I'm like, why is this never as sharp as Mora was out of the box? Because I was ruining them by putting micro bevels on them instead of matching the exact angle that comes out of here. Now, I think Mora puts a 20 degree on their Scandi grinds out of the package. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look it up. Looking at can ripping. That's really interesting. I was looking at this thing. I swear, Kurt, it was in front of my face 3 days ago when my best friend from growing up, like my whole life. I think I might have mentioned this. No, because it was last week. So my best friend. All right, I'm going to ask this. I need a little more. What do you mean? Are you asking like what grind goes to what steel? Is this what you're asking? I need a little. I want to understand. I want to answer your question right. So I think what you're asking me is like what kind of grinds go best with what steels. If that's what you mean, then just tell me yes. I think that you should. I think that a beginner should learn how to sharpen on a regular whetstone first. Honestly, I think you'll learn how to do the hard way, and then you get the more advanced stuff. Because if you get too, I think it's better to go from traditional to easier, not to have everything set up for you and then get super frustrated learning. Okay, yes. Okay. So, and again, this is just going to be my opinion. I think your tougher steels need less help. I think your lower grade steels lower in carbon need more help. They need tougher grinds. So your high carbon steels and stuff that already can maintain an edge better, you can do grinds like your convex. You can do grinds like your Scandi. You can do things like your hollow grind, because those. I'm sorry, I said that back. No, I had that right. Yeah, because those don't need the added structure and support behind them, like a flat saber grind or something like that. Your steels that are, I will say for, well, I don't want to say softer. Adam, I was just about to talk about you, Adam. This is my friend from growing up, my best friend in life that was just here that I was about to talk about, Harbor Freight and everything, and then got the question about the angles and the blade grinds and the combinations. So yeah, the tougher your steel is, the thinner you can take that cutting edge and have less worry. The more prone your steel might be to chipping and everything later, that's when you want to have that nice steel base behind it. So what I was about to say was that this guy right here, just came on out for a visit. We grew up together. A couple hundred feet, our apartments in New York looked at each other, faced each other. We could throw stuff at each other. We threw stuff at each other a lot. We're going through a lot of the same stuff mentally and healthily. And it's been a while since we saw each other. So he came on out and we did some carving of wood together. Actually, that I got to find a wood gnome picture and show you guys. Because I learned about gnomes and carving them. And it was my big first experience carving gnomes, carving anything. So let me look for this real quick. But we were at Harbor Freight. We went all over looking for wood carving tools and wood carving kinds of things. And it was, I got to admit, I didn't think I'd ever carve wood. But I did. And so it was a new experience that I enjoyed. And Adam taught me all about it. Let's see. Now I've got to get this folder open. This is why I need OBS. It's so much easier to do this stuff. Present. Share screen. Window. Air Force Builder. Okay. So these are the gnomes that we carved with wood carving knives. This green-hatted guy is his. This penis-hatted, purple hat wizard-looking thing is mine. And then we just did some acrylic painting. But this is all like, this was a one block of wood thing that we carved and just sat in the backyard and bullshitted the whole time. And that was cool. And we were. Oh wait, I missed Sassafras. I still, you know what? I'm gonna have to come up with a new plan for the Megalodon because I'll have to email you. You bought a whittling book. I'll get you in touch with Adam. He'll tell you everything he's already learned. I actually now am. I never thought that I'd do anything wood cutting related. You didn't see all the gnomes? Hold on. Hold on. I have to make sure you guys saw this. Okay. Are you guys seeing the gnomes? Somebody tell me we're seeing the gnomes. Gnomes on screen. Are we seeing gnomes now? Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of tabs open. I don't like to like close them because I'm afraid I'll never find them again. So this is what we carved. Yeah. And we did this all with little carving knives. Like he was using a Schrade old timer. And I had he let me use his actual wood carving knife. This took us, Adam, are you still here? Did you run away? Adam, if you're still in here watching, he has a better sense of time. I think it took us. He mentioned FlexiCut. I don't know what he used, but I'm telling you, he had like literally a Schrade old timer knife with like 4 different blades on it. And that's what he used. And I had like a single bladed little wood carving knife that might have been from FlexiCut or it might have been from Beavercraft. I don't know. All right. Thanks, Bot, for stopping by. I appreciate the questions. That was some good stuff to think about. Okay. Get some bed. Get some sleep, I mean. Good night, go to bed. I'm tired. I need to eat. I have not eaten a whole lot. Like it was oh, you're here. Good. Adam, you're here. How long did the gnome carving take us? Because I don't remember. It was light when we started, and it was not as light when we were done. And then like the next day we painted them. I'm thinking it took us, I feel like 3 or 4 hours, but I don't know if that's like a realistic time amount. But you know what? I feel like I need to leave those gnomes up. Maybe 2 to 3 hours. Okay, Adam says maybe 2 to 3 hours, and I believe him. And I'm just going to leave me and the gnomes up here so that you can see. Wait, can I do this? Oh, look at that! I can do that. Gnomes big and me little. Maybe 2 to 3 hours of gnome time. I would, and it was one of those things. And I've said this. I feel cheesy saying this again, but I've said this a bunch of times now. I build models, and they give me all the parts in the box, and they give me instructions, and like I feel super accomplished when I turn all those parts into a thing, right? But this time I took a blank block of wood and carved out a thing, and even though I still feel like it's terrible, I felt very, very accomplished just having made a thing, because this is like my skill set is very specific in what I do with knives, but this was like a whole new thing. I will post it, Kurt. I will. It's like a whole like you have a whole 3D thing out of this block of wood. I really enjoy doing it, and I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I gotta get one of those little. I gotta get a little wood carving knife, because it was also very relaxing to do, and very fun to watch how terrible my gnome ended up looking, especially when we looked online compared to other gnomes, and stuff like that. That was all part of it. It was part of the therapeuticness to be able to laugh and to say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun, and I'm not thinking about terrible things or anything else while I'm doing this gnome. So it was a great time. It was. I didn't think I was. I'll tell you the truth. I never told you this time. At first, I was just doing it because I was like, well, Adam wants me to carve a wood gnome, so I'm going to carve a wood gnome, and I'm going to pretend like I'm really enjoying it. But I got really, really into it. Okay, so listen, I'm going to need one of those B-2 bombers. Yes. And I have to show you what I just got, because you're going to love it. Yeah, Christopher, I did this purple wizard hat guy. I mean, Kurt, we were looking at online, and we were watching Linker, not Lunker, but Linker. He's a Canadian carver, and he just drove down to the lake. He just drove down to the lake, picked up a piece of wood, like a branch of wood, like cut a branch of wood down with his pocket knife. And in the time that, like, it took me to carve out the eye on mine, he had a face with eyebrows, with cheekbones, with an ear, with nostrils. Like, this guy was, I couldn't begin to explain to you how inadequate I felt looking at my gnome and looking at just the upper face that this guy was carving out of his stick that he had just picked up out of the ground. I had a ready-made cut block of wood for me. He was working through like just an unprocessed stick. It was incredible. No, Christian, mine was totally the purple penis hat. Yeah, that's mine. Adam got this really. I tried to do this rosy cheek thing, and it just looked like somebody had punched my gnome in the face. But Adam got his little, his rosy cheeks down really nice. He was a very happy gnome. Yeah, it came out really good. My gnome looks like my gnome is kind of like if you ordered Gandalf from Wish. That's what my gnome is. So I'm not too terribly proud of it, but I am proud that I actually made a thing. But that's his like open mouth. His mouth is open. Mine has a dark hole of a mouth. It just it's just a terrible, terrible gnome. I just have a terrible gnome. I'm a bad gnome person. But I'm going to work on my gnomes in the future. I'm going to get really good at gnomes and then move on to some like wood spirits. That's what I'm going to do. And Adam left me with a piece of wood to work on, and I found it's. I got to figure out what box it came in. It's a UST. It's a UST. It looks like a little tiny Opinel, and it has a little tiny like shrimp fork on the back of it. But it's just the same size knife that I was using for the wood carving. So I'm going to sharpen the shit out of it. And I'm going to use it to carve a gnome. This is such a true statement. It's a great statement. Yeah. I can't tell you how much fun we had just looking at each other's stuff as we were carving. And, he was showing me all the cuts to make. There's specific kinds of cuts. He taught me how to do this from his memory of watching a video once. So he was just saying, cut here, do this, do this, do this. And I'm just laughing every cut as I'm like, my gnome is going to be like the most ugliest gnome and that no other gnome is going to want to talk to. But it was just, the reason my hat looks the way it does is because I just couldn't stop cutting wood. I was like convinced if I make one more cut, this hat is going to look perfect. If I make one more cut after that, now my hat's going to look perfect. No. One more slice of wood, and this hat is going to be perfect. And the hat never was perfect, never looked perfect, and was getting, in fact, more and more less perfect. As you can see, it ended up becoming this wizard witch hat that was just, what it is. It is a terrible... But anyway, I really enjoyed it, and it's a whole different aspect on knives and feeling of a knife cutting through wood, because when I'm cutting through wood, I'm cutting to make fire materials. I'm cutting to test out a knife's blade. I'm cutting to make a shelter, make a spear, make something I can fish with. I'm never doing it to create anything that's not practical. Oh my God. There's a Giggles. There's a Giggles in the room. Giggles liked the gnomes. She was gnome friendly. Rolling with the gnomies. This This is the giggles. And this is actually a real life. This is a picture of her I just took today. Actually, that's not a picture. That's not like a drawing. It's what she looks like walking around at any given point. So, yeah, the wood carving is really good, and I really enjoyed it. And it gave me a whole new outlook on, well, I can tie it all together to the different kind of grinds and different ways that knives cut into wood with, look, are we looking to make a little cut? Are we looking to gouge out a section? What am I looking to accomplish with whatever material I'm cutting? And what is the best knife to do that with? And what is the best grind to do that with? Because even if you look at these little wood carving knives, you'll see they come in different blade shapes, different blade grinds, different kinds of things. It's real interesting the way it works. So that's why I thought tonight would be good to talk about kind of the different blade grinds that we can use for different outdoor things. And what did we end up talking about? Gnomes. We ended up at gnomes. So once again, a subject I was completely unable to keep the train on the track. It is what it is. But oh, that's really cool. That's very cool. So, the Christian, the link that I sent you the other day to the fire starting stuff, did you notice how many times I kept calling the one knife the Huntsman that is absolutely not the Huntsman? I don't know if you even watched that video yet. The rest of you will all get to see that video soon. I could not stop calling a certain model Huntsman. It is not. It is not a Huntsman. But there's going to be a not a joint video, but a video that is going to be a topic that is going to be jointly covered by me and exploring it all in just a little bit, related to Swiss Army knives. So that's something I didn't know. Wooden utensils. Giggles got me? Giggles got me a giant turkey leg because I always wanted to eat like a medieval king and just walk around with a turkey leg in my hand and just take bites out of it while accusing other people of being peasants and stuff. She found me one. She did, because she's a wonderful woman. I will do that. That will be great. I will. And you know what? I need like 3 more panels to put patches up that I have in a bag. I absolutely will talk about those patches. Well, maybe it was for Todd, but now we all know. Because that is still a cool thing. Yeah. It just kind of sucks that we're on the exact opposite ends of the country. But we'll work it out one day. We will. I will do that, Kevin. I'm going to go right after this. I'm going to go eat something, and then I'll message you. And with that little segue, I'm going to. Still going? Yeah, there we are. Okay. You know what? That is a good sign. It's time to wrap this up. So I like to keep these things about an hour or so they don't drag on like me talking in a regular video. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining me tonight. I hope there was a little education and a little entertainment that went on, and there's just a whole lot of rolling with the gnomies. So, Craig, I got friends over at the 128th. I don't know if you know that. I know a lot of people at the 128th. I can get you a patch. But anyway, thanks, guys, for joining me. I hope this was fun. If you have topics that you want to cover during live streams and subjects and stuff, let me know. You can email me or message me or new Facebook me or whatever. And I hope that we'll get some more involvement as we go on. We used to have slightly higher people coming in and chatting, but whatever. If it's just the same group, we'll just keep doing them for the same group and having fun. But definitely let me know what you want to talk about, what you want to see, and what you want to do. So anyway, you guys are all absolutely awesome, and I appreciate every single one of you. And I will see you right here, same time, same place next week. Take care.